Welcome back to House of the Recaps. Today, we're going to talk about a 2011 movie that's a mix of biography, comedy, and drama. Heads up, spoilers ahead. One night in Paris, Driss is driving his boss, Philippe, around the city. When the traffic gets boring, Driss decides to speed up, ignoring traffic rules and driving recklessly. This catches the attention of the police, and Driss bets €100 that he can outrun them. But the police catch up by trapping them after Driss drives under a bridge. Instead of panicking, Driss makes another bet, this time for €200, saying he can get the police to escort them. When the police stop him, Driss starts acting, pretending to be upset and explaining that Philippe is disabled and they're rushing to the hospital. The officers believe him when they find a wheelchair in the car. When they check on Philippe, they see him pretending to have a seizure. Thinking it's an emergency, the police let them go and even offer to escort them to the hospital. To celebrate winning the bet, Driss plays September by Earth, Wind, and Fire, and when they arrive at their destination, he shares a cigarette with Philippe. Their friendship started months ago when Philippe and his assistant, Magali, were interviewing for a new caregiver, but it wasn't going well since all the candidates gave typical or awkward answers. Then Driss barges in, cutting in line because he only wants them to sign papers so he can claim unemployment benefits. He's blunt and a bit rude, even flirting with Magali, but Philippe finds him entertaining and asks him to come back the next day for his signed papers. Driss returns home to his modest neighborhood, tries to take a bath while his younger siblings bother him, and only finishes thanks to his more responsible sister, Mina. While waiting for their mom, he sees his brother Adama stepping out of a shady car. When the boy enters the apartment, he briefly says he was at school, grabs his bag, and leaves. Later that evening, his mom comes home, and he gives her a Faberge egg he stole from Philippe. When she asks where he's been, he lies and says he was on vacation. She's upset because he disappeared for 6 months without calling and now suddenly shows up like her home is a hotel. Tired of his lies and needing to care for her other children, she kicks him out and tells him not to come back. That night, Driss spends time smoking and eating snacks with friends from the neighborhood. The next day, Driss returns to Philippe's house to get his papers, and the housekeeper, Yvonne, shows him around, explaining Philippe's daily routine and showing him the room he would have, complete with a private bathroom. Driss is fascinated by the bathtub before being taken to meet Philippe, who gives him his signed papers and offers him a job. Driss accepts the 1-month trial, and Philippe bets he won't last 2 weeks. After moving into his room, Driss learns how to take care of Philippe. Driss has to learn how to keep Philippe's legs active, how to help him get into his wheelchair, assist him in showering, and help him change clothes. Things get uncomfortable when Driss realizes he has to put high stockings on Philippe and even clean him after he uses the bathroom. One evening, while Driss is relaxing on the roof with a snack, Philippe's daughter Elisa and her boyfriend Bastian show up, looking for a private spot to be together. Driss kicks them out. Over time, Driss gets used to his routine with Philippe. He makes some mistakes at first, like handing Philippe the phone instead of holding it to his ear or forgetting to use the baby monitor during bath time, but he learns from them. He also learns to organize Philippe's mail into folders, opening most of the letters but leaving some private ones alone. When Driss finds flyers for female escorts, he creates a special folder for them instead of throwing them away. Philippe jokes that life isn't just about work, and Driss still makes sure to have fun, like flirting with Magali, unsuccessfully, and calling escorts to join him in bed. One morning, Yvonne comes to scold Driss for being late and finds dangerous weapons in his bag, though she doesn't mention them yet. That day, Driss is supposed to drive Philippe around, but refuses to put him in the back of a van like cargo. He takes Philippe in one of the fancy cars that rarely gets used. Although Philippe is hesitant at first, thinking it's impractical, he quickly gets excited by the idea of a faster, more fun ride. Despite Yvonne's disapproval, they run into a neighbor parked in front of the entrance. Ignoring the no parking sign, Driss grabs the man by the shirt and threatens him until he moves the car, which impresses Philippe but not Yvonne. Later, they visit a museum where Philippe plans to buy a painting, which Driss thinks is a waste of money because it's just a red blotch on a canvas. Afterward, Philippe meets a relative who expresses concern about Driss, saying his violent past and criminal record are worrying. But Philippe doesn't care. Driss gets along well with Philippe because he doesn't treat him with pity and is comfortable joking with him. After trying and failing to flirt with Magali, Driss has dinner with Yvonne in the kitchen. They overhear Philippe dictating a letter to Magali, pretending it's a private matter. Yvonne turns off the baby monitor and explains what's really happening. Philippe has been exchanging letters with a woman named Elena, whom he's never met in person. He wouldn't let Driss read those letters earlier because their relationship is purely through writing. Driss teases Yvonne about the way the gardener keeps eyeing her before heading to bed. While trying to sleep, Driss hears strange sounds through the baby monitor. He realizes Philippe is having trouble breathing, so he goes to help him. Driss calmly guides Philippe through the attack, soothing him with gentle words and a wet cloth. After Philippe falls asleep but wakes up again needing air, Driss takes him for a walk by the river in his wheelchair. This is the first time in a long while Philippe has seen Paris at night, and it helps him relax. Philippe opens up to Driss, explaining that his medicine only helps so much, and he sometimes experiences phantom pain. When the phantom pain threatens to return, Driss shares one of his joints with Philippe, who initially hesitates but ends up enjoying it. They later go to a restaurant where they joke around during the meal, and Philippe shares more of his past. He met his wife when they were students, and after getting married, she had 5 miscarriages and was diagnosed with a terminal illness. They adopted their daughter Elisa during this time. Philippe has always loved competition, extreme sports, and paragliding, which led to his accident during a flight in bad weather. He broke his spine, but believes his real hardship is living without his wife. After some more jokes, Philippe remembers Driss has completed his 1-month trial and is officially hired, but first, he has to return the Faberge egg he stole. The egg was a gift from Philippe's wife. The next day, Driss meets with his sister Mina, who is upset because he hasn't responded to her messages except to ask about the egg. She also mentions that the police have been calling their house. Later, Driss visits his brother Adama, who admits to being caught with drugs but refuses Driss's offer to take him to lunch, getting into a suspicious car instead. Afterward, Driss is present while Philippe dictates another letter to Elainer through Magali. Driss finds the writing too poetic and thinks Philippe should be more straightforward. He's also surprised that they've been writing to each other for 6 months without exchanging pictures. When Driss finds Elainer's phone number in one of the letters, he calls her and convinces Philippe to speak to her directly. Their conversation goes well, and soon Philippe is talking to her all the time, even right before he and Driss attend the opera, where Driss laughs and makes fun of the costumes. The next day, Driss convinces Philippe to exchange photos with Eleanor and picks one of Philippe in his wheelchair. Later, while Driss is painting, Elisa barges into his room asking for cigarettes and mocks him for trying to be artistic. Angry, Driss kicks her out and then goes to Philippe, who is asking Yvonne to swap the picture with an older one of him before he became quadriplegic. Yvonne quickly hides the new picture right before Driss enters, complaining about Elisa and saying Philippe needs to discipline her, which Yvonne agrees with. Philippe promises to talk to her, but is surprised when Driss mentions that he's been painting. As time goes on, Philippe and Driss grow closer. Driss takes him out to play in the snow and brings him along during his runs. Philippe buys Driss his first suit and scolds his daughter while Driss listens in through a baby monitor. Driss finishes his first painting and shows it to Magali, but when he tries to kiss her, she slaps him. Philippe likes the painting and says he'll try to sell it. On Philippe's birthday, he isn't too excited. Every year, he pretends to be surprised at the party and has to deal with relatives who only come to check if he's still alive. Philippe says it'll be boring. As the guests enjoy some classical music, Driss looks for Elisa, who is crying in her room after taking some of Yvonne's pills, though they won't actually harm her. She's upset because Bastien broke up with her and called her a name. She asks Driss to talk to him, and he agrees in exchange for something. Meanwhile, Philippe shows Driss's painting to a relative and convinces him to buy it for 11,000 euros. Driss later chats with Yvonne, who tells him Magali is dating someone named Fred, though things aren't going well, which gives Driss hope. As the party winds down, Philippe plays some classical music for Driss, but Driss only jokes about it. Afterward, Driss puts on Boogie Wonderland by Earth, Wind and Fire and starts dancing in the middle of the floor. He's a great dancer and gets everyone at the party to join in, which Philippe enjoys watching. Later, when it's time for bed, Driss opens a letter from Elainer, who sends him a pretty picture and suggests they meet next week in Paris. On the day of their date, Yvonne and Driss help Philippe pick out the best outfit. Since Yvonne is taking Philippe to the date, Driss uses his day off to visit Bastien and pressures him to apologize to Elisa and bring her croissants every day. He also tells him to fix his hair. After that, Driss visits his mom at work, but just watches her from a distance. At the restaurant, Yvonne and Philippe wait for Elainer, who is very late. After an hour, Philippe gives up, calls Driss to pick him up, and leaves just as Elainer arrives. That night, Philippe takes Driss on his private plane and gives him money from selling a picture, making him really happy. The next morning, Philippe decides to go paragliding and drags Driss along. Driss is scared at first, but ends up having fun. When they get home, Driss's brother Adama is waiting and gets mad when he sees Driss's scars. Adama won't tell Driss what's going on in his life, so Driss makes him wait in his room while he reassures Nina not to worry. Philippe isn't sleepy and asks Driss about his family. At first, Driss doesn't want to share, but he eventually reveals that Adama isn't his real brother, and his parents are actually his aunt and uncle. They brought him from Senegal when he was 8 because they couldn't have kids, and his real name is Bakary Bari, but he's called Driss. His aunt was later able to have a baby, and after his uncle died, she had more kids. Philippe thinks Adama needs discipline, so he fires Driss to help him be with his family, saying he can't spend his whole life caring for an old man. The next morning, after Bastien brings his daily croissant and has a better haircut, Driss packs his bags. Magali comes to say goodbye, but when Driss flirts with her one last time, she introduces him to her boyfriend, Fred. Driss realizes Magali isn't interested in men and gives up. Before leaving, he returns the baby monitor to Yvonne and teases her about lying to him about Magali. She gives him the escort file he started, and he's disappointed to see the photo he picked hidden inside. Outside, Driss finds a car blocking the entrance and asks the driver to move, even though he no longer works there. When Adama calls him out, Driss insists it's a matter of principle. Later, the two brothers pick up their mom from the station. Back home, Philippe has his first dinner with his new caretaker, who is dull, so Philippe decides to leave without eating anything. Yvonne is out on a date with the gardener, so no one is there to tell him off. As time goes by, Driss goes back to his old life. He hangs out with his old friends again and tells the guys in the suspicious car to stop bothering Adama. He goes for a job interview, even though he doesn't have the right experience. He impresses the employer by saying he's practical and using the art knowledge he learned from Philippe, which gets him a job as a driver. Philippe still doesn't like his new caretaker and is always in a bad mood. One night, he refuses help with his phantom pain, so Yvonne calls Driss to come over. This leads them back to the situation they were in at the start, where the police first chase them and then take them to the hospital. After that, Driss takes Philippe to the coast, and seeing the sea helps Philippe relax. Later, Driss trims Philippe's long beard before taking him to lunch at a restaurant, but he leaves because someone else will be keeping Philippe company. Driss wishes him luck and gives him back his egg before he goes. Philippe starts to worry about being alone until he sees his date, Eleanor, who is happy to see him and doesn't mind his wheelchair. The real Count Philippe Pozzo de Borgo now lives in Morocco. He's remarried and has 2 daughters. The real Driss, whose name is Abdul Yasmin Seller. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Turn on notifications to watch more videos like this. Till next time, take care.